Greetings and salutations, YouTubers and malefactors. We're back here at Stoplogic Motorsports, and we're doing a little bit of harness, or I guess loom surgery to get this thing to fit a WR250R. So as you saw in the last video, the connectors for these were these huge ring connectors that were about the size of a dime, didn't fit on the battery terminals. So what we're going to be doing is well, I guess basically putting on new terminals. Got a little box of spare terminals here. I'm trying to decide right now between going with a prong terminal, which will be easier to slip on. The advantages are it's easier to slip on, you don't have to take the bolt completely out to put it on. The disadvantages is that it could potentially work loose, but given how tight the space is we're going to be installing this, I think we're going to go with the prong. Or you can do a loop connector, which is tried and true. Won't come out unless the whole bolt falls out. I'm going to start with the prong connector, and if I have any issues with it, then we'll swap over. Now here's the deal, these colors here actually mean something. So red would be between the gauges of 22 and 16 gauge, well actually 22 and 18 in this case, and the blue will be 14 through 16, which is really just 2 gauges, because you're not going to find a 15 gauge wire, and if such a thing exists, it's not in the American wire sizing standard. Apparently we had a couple of strays. So installing these little connectors here, and I know the camera or the GoPro's not the best choice for doing up close shots because it doesn't have a macro lens. There's a little spot in the top of these where you have kind of a split where the metal is. That's where you're going to want your crimp tool to rest. So when you put your connector in the crimp tool, make sure the point is right at that break. That way it crimps properly onto the wire. So basically, just like in my Africa Twin lighting video, I want to call it the fog light surgery video, you stuff a bit of the jacket into the crimp connector, assuming it fits. This is actually pretty thick jacketing for 16 gauge wire. Well, that's somewhat problematic. Let's see if it fits better on this side. And sometimes you'll run across the whole deal that the jacketing for this is actually thicker than your standard 16 gauge jacketing. So this is actually a really well made loom, which in my case is not the best news. Double check. Oh yeah, that's definitely a much smaller wire gauge. So we might have to go up a size on these and go to like a 14 gauge, a dedicated 14 gauge. Let's see if I have a larger connector. Be right back. And apparently I'm not lucky enough to have a larger connector, so we're going to see if we can crimp these on and make do with this, just being on a straight wire connection. Remember what I said earlier? Line up the split on your wire with where your crimp tool is going to be, the sharp part of your crimp tool. And then you crimp. It looks like this isn't quite making a clean crimp. I'm used to using old-fashioned crimp tools, so it's a little bit easier with the old-style crimp plier. Sometimes you won't get a clean crimp on here, so you'll have to just kind of orient this down here and kind of mash it down a bit. Alright, do we have a strong connection? Well, we have a strong connection. It's definitely crimped down onto there. It's going nowhere. So one recommendation I'd make if you don't have a proper wire crimp connector and it's just crimping right at your wires, solder these connections. I'll get some solder and everything a bit later to finish these connections. Make sure you twist the ends, get it nice and clean through there, because if you start having wires going straight on you, it gets a little more difficult to wire stuff. So this time we're going to try and line up the crimp connector a little bit better. Actually, we'll try the cup crimp. Alright, so you'll see a split on top, you try and line it up directly over it. And of course we're being difficult. Got half of it to crimp down. Goodness. We're just gonna be difficult, aren't we? See, it's not a good crimp connection because it didn't go right at the split. It turned on me. And I don't mean as it betrayed me, as in it spun while I was crimping. So another thing you're gonna want to do is get a nice set of crimp pliers if you're going to do this sort of work on a regular basis. The nice ones are like the ones you see in my Africa Twin video with the 3 cups on there. Gives you a nice clean crimp. Alright, we're trying this again. We're lining up right at the split. Oh, this one's almost right. There we go. Nice, good crimp up front. Nice little touch up there. And it came right off. Well, that's some bad luck. That had all the recipes for a proper crimp connection. Well, looks like we'll try one of these loop connectors. And the problem is once you actually use the crimp connector, well, you might be able to salvage it. But generally you can't salvage it once it's been smushed. It doesn't much matter if you have mismatched connectors as long as they fit what you're going to be doing. It just looks better. And yeah, I know I'm going to trigger more people who follow my videos and are like incensed whenever they see me wire something. You're using these melt connectors, you're using the wrong kind of wire ties, da 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 da. Look, it's a situation where I'm between houses and don't have my garage with me. Yeah, you gotta kind of make do with what you got handy. Well, that's definitely not the best connection there, but a little bit of solder will help clean that up. So yeah, I know. Not the best looking connection, but it'll work. So I'm gonna grab ourselves a little bit of a shrink tubing. And we're just gonna prep these for soldering them a little bit later. So I'll do a little solder on them. And when I get my bike back in my possession, or go over to where it's garaged at, we'll slap this kit on and get some fog lights on that thing so I have some adequate nighttime lighting. So, do 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 do. And this is basically just to lock the crimp in place and also watertight the connection. I should probably turn off the ceiling fan before I do this. Hello, sweetie. We have Mrs. Stoplogic here up here with me, saving me. Yeah, turning off the fan and saving me from life of abject loneliness up here in Fort Worth. With any luck, we'll be going to see the Dune movie today. Huge fan of Frank Herbert's work, and to a lesser degree his son's. I don't understand why everyone dislikes his son's work so much. It's actually not that bad. Yeah, it's not the best rendition of Dune ever, but it's pretty good. There we go. So a little bit later this evening, when I get back from a cinematic adventure, we'll dabble-do of a little bit of solder on the end of these connectors. Give it a little bit of gabagool. Yeah, I'm gonna solder some stuff at Cracker Barrel. And I'm gonna give it some gabagool. So, yeah, we'll finish this up and then start working on the connectors for the end of the light. So anywho, we're back. I decided to stick with the mismatched connectors. On the Yamaha, one's going to be more reachable than the other, so I believe the negative terminal is actually easier to reach. The positive terminal is going to take a little snaking in there, so having something open on the front is not going to be a bad idea. And if it starts giving me trouble, I went ahead and got a whole new box of connectors today, so we'll see how it goes. So it's going to be a little bit of time before I get out where my bike is being remotely kept to put this wiring harness on. That's gonna be, let's see, about 10 days from now. So hopefully you'll see that, get to try out some lighting stuff. I've got a lot of good stuff ready to go. It's just access to my motorcycle is limited. So anywho, here's a wiring harness. This is the Nightlight wiring harness, weatherproof switch, 40 amp relay. I believe this is a goodness, 15 amp fuse, so you don't run the risk of getting chapped. And then it runs out. Oh goodness, yeah, it's a little hard to hold up. Runs out to a set of double female spade connectors. So we're going to put on the male spade connectors on the lights, and I'm going to spend a little time sussing out how I'm going to mount these. I think I'm going to mount them to the reflectors upside down. Probably take these off. There's a space for this to go in, and that's the same thread size as the space I'm looking to mount. We'll see how well that holds up. So we're going to take this wiring harness and put it off to the side for a little bit. And we're going to take our male spade connectors. Remember kids, get your dogs spayed and neutered. It's a little Bob Barker reference there. As I said before, look for the top of the connector where the split is. Put your crimper in. And you try and get it to where the split is. And give it an old crimp. That's actually nice and tight. So it's a lot like my fog light surgery video on the Africa Twin, if you guys have seen that. Look up in the top right hand corner for the info tag. This is a little different because these lights are a good bit smaller than the larger Amazon lights. And the wiring is actually a lot smaller than those larger Amazon lights. And also, if you notice you have any issues with your connection, come in there and tap a little bit of solder on there. So these appear to be well connected. There's a third wire, a yellow wire on these, and I'll leave a link in the description for what these lights are. That is a yellow light, supposedly a yellow light for low, and a white light for bright. And hopefully, before I get this light and a few other lights handy, I'm going to get a lux meter and show you guys scientific tests of intensity and everything. That was actually a recommendation by one of the subscribers. And I found it to be a very, very good recommendation. So, give a little bit of credit to Mr. Cars Boy on our subscriber list. Definitely knows how to kick up the science element of this channel a good bit. Alright, so that connector on. And right now I'm clicking Hamburger Assistant Apprentice. Yeah, a little F is for family joke there, but you know, it doesn't hurt to multitask a bit. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the bike here to test this on. So what I'm going to do here in a little bit is grab a Ryobi drill battery, yes, and I'm going to put it on the negative and positive terminals, and we're going to run power to this to see if these lights have crimped on correctly. So give me a little bit of time to get that all set up, and this is kind of a good way to do a little bench testing before you just go in whole hog to the whole deal. So before I go down to the truck and do that, we're going to go ahead and get our lights connected. Of course, red to red, black to black. And I've used these Nightlight harnesses before. It's actually the same harness that I used on the Africa Twin. I'm pretty pleased overall with the quality of their harnesses. Their lights, I hear, have been having a little bit of quality control issues. They didn't have a product that really was working for the size of my light that I needed for the WR. So I've taken the same $30 of seed money and returned like 4 sets of lights. Sorry, Amazon, to see if I get that working. So red to red, black to black, a little bit of weather connectors, and we'll be right back with the test. So give me just a second. And we're back. So one thing to note on these Ryobis, if you use them as a test bench, that's positive, that's negative. They mark the top of their batteries. Got plenty of power. So let's see what we got. I might as well turn the switch on. It's gonna be hard to reach. Those hard to reach places. Oh, look at that! Ah! Oh, sweet nectar. It's like my lights at 10S around the yard, but they're standing still. Still waters run deep. And man, those things are bright. It's kind of a blind myself for science real quick, folks. Yeah, there we go. Let's see. Let's make some poor decisions. Ah, dang, that's bright. So the site claims these are like 1,000 lumens a pop. I don't know if they're 1,000 lumens a pop. We're gonna do a little lux meter on them, but these should kick up the light on the that's the Africa Twin. Goodness, on the WR250R, and they're nice and compact, nice lightweight. Should work fine there. If not, these are like 20 something bucks. So I'm not gonna cry if one falls off. Well, anywho, we've kind of did the bit of the wiring here. And if you like the content, like and subscribe. If you don't, feel free to criticize me harshly. You can whip me, beat me, make me write hot checks. And hopefully soon, we're gonna do a little test. A few little tests. See how this works on the WR. Well, in the meantime, have a good one, folks.